Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Breaking the Game show, coming by way of the Off the Ball Network here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. I am Stephen Gillespie, and joining me, as he almost always does, is my good buddy Austin Carr. Austin, what's up, homie?
Just got home from work a little bit ago, ready to go, ready for a fun show. How about you?
Oh man, can't complain. Life's good. Just got the kids down. You know, the wife's relaxing. Life's good. Had a little bit of basketball on. Got to listen to our incredible special guest that I'll introduce here in a second. He was on the show with our vice president, Jeff Hunt, other vice president, Mo Murphy, and great contributors of Off the Ball Network with the Hoopers. They were awesome. John and Fresh always do amazing work. They're also a part of the Nothing But Net channel here on Dash Radio as well. But all that being said and stated, we got a great show for you lined up here tonight. And Austin, we have the distinct honor, privilege. We are in the presence of just so much power. You know, he has at the click of a mouse, at the touch of a button, at the pull of a string, he can make anything happen. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our president of the Off the Ball Network, Chris LeBron. Chris, what's up, man?
Man, that might be the best intro I've ever had on a show. So
I can retire now.
Round of applause. I like that.
There you go. It's all for you, man.
Makes me feel good.
I appreciate that, guys. What's going on?
Not much, man. Happy to have you on. How's life treating you, brother?
Life's good. You know, I was just on Jeff's show. I was on the run. I was at just getting groceries and all that, doing all that fun stuff while the kids, at the checkout line, trying to do a show with Jeff. But yeah, everything's good, man. Just have basketball in the background. Can't complain.
There you go. That's all we can do, right? Just keep pushing, do our daily routine that we can, and then we get to have fun and come together and talk about a game that we all love, that being basketball.
Yes,
and
sir.
To get it started, guys, we had something that we haven't really seen in full effect ever. There have been other instances that have kind of tinges or shades or a little bit of feelings about what we're about to talk about. But overall, this is pretty new information, a new way of hiring, and that being the Minnesota Timberwolves firing Ryan Saunders, son of the late great legendary Flip Saunders, and bring on Chris Finch, who by all accounts has served his time as an assistant head coach. He's had plenty of stops. His most recent one was being the top assistant for the Toronto Raptors under Nick Nurse, and now he found his way in Minnesota. Chris, I know that we've talked about this offline, man. I'm really interested in getting more insight from you on what were your overall thoughts and feelings on this.
I absolutely despise what they did. It was just so classless. It was dirty. It was dirty. It just rubbed me the wrong way. Listen, I knew Flip was not Flip. See.
I'm sorry, I had to say it.
Ryan, rest in peace, Flip. But Ryan Song, I knew his time was definitely going to come. At least by the end of the year, he wasn't going to be the coach of this team. But it just felt so wrong how they handled this. Like it's one thing to get fired, but then to have the replacement ready to go, and he's not even like an assistant coach on the team. He's someone outside of so not only did I get fired, but you replaced me with someone. So that means you had this in the bag already. Like you knew I was gone. And coming into the season, I kind of felt like he was a lame duck coach too. And that's kind of the worst thing to be as a coach, as a lame duck coach. I kind of, I don't know if he felt that, but I kind of had that feeling with Ryan that he might not last the whole year, with Minnesota, just because there's just so much dysfunction with this team. And you would think with a team with so much talent, you look at the roster and you're just like, oh my God, you guys have talent everywhere. Teams would dream to have the talent. You got Towns, who was an all NBA type player. I mean, D'Angelo Russell. I mean, you just had the number one pick, and it's a disaster. And the front office is a disaster. Ownership's been a disaster. I mean, KG, he called them out. He didn't want nothing part of the Ring of Honor or anything. He's like, no, don't put me in there. I don't want no part of you guys. So it's kind of showed just how bad and dysfunctional this organization has been for a while. And it rubbed me. It still bothers me. I don't like the way they handled it. Listen, I understand that's not the guy you think is going to be the coach, but there's just better ways of handling how to fight, especially someone like Ryan Saunders, who's, his dad is, arguably the best coach in franchise history. He deserves a little bit more respect than that, So it just rubbed me the wrong way how they handled that whole thing. Just total classless and just really disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Austin, I want to turn this to you, but before I do, I just want to remind everybody that Saunders, Chris, you spoke on this, and I'm glad that you led off with the disappointment on Saunders end, because we're going to get into the other half of this, which is equally, if not more disappointing, right, on who they brought in and who they kind of didn't even really give a good solid look to. But for Saunders, right, granted, he had the NBA's worst record with 7 wins on the season. I mean, that's when you only get single digit wins, 30 games into the season, you're bound for a change to be made, right? We've seen guys like Earl Watson suddenly get yanked out. The Knicks with Fizdale suddenly got yanked out. We've seen this type of thing before, but with Saunders, this wasn't his first full season as coach. He's coached before for this team, and again, 7 wins this season, Austin, but he's only had 5 total games between D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. So when you consider that, Chris, you mentioned that they have a great deal of talent, but at the end of the day, when your stars aren't on the floor together in the Western Conference, Austin, it was just, I don't know what else you could really realistically expect.
Right. It kind of harkens back to what happened with the Pelicans with Alvin Gentry. Alvin Gentry at the end of last year had handcuffs on him in terms of how and when he could play Zion Williamson. Never really got his full roster at his disposal for really any serious amount of time at all. And pretty much was a lame duck coach, like Chris had mentioned. So, obviously you have to kind of temper expectations when there's something like that going on. But also, like you guys said, looking up and down this roster, if they did get healthy or when they did get healthy, there's quite a few big names on here. Seven wins so far with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. You would think and hope to see some improvement, and it didn't happen. So the firing of Saunders isn't really an issue to me. I get it. I understand why they did. I think a lot of people saw it coming at some point. And honestly, at first, when I first heard about it, I was like, well, that's different. I've never really heard of a team going and getting an assistant from another team, especially mid-season. Mm-hmm. And then, I heard something about it on the radio today that kind of made me think a little differently. Like, if every GM is kind of always, talking coaches and testing the waters, so to speak. And I'm sure you guys would agree. I would guess they all just about every one of them has a backup plan in case something with their head coach does happen or they do need to go a different direction. But they didn't need to hire him within the hours of firing the guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's an assistant on another roster. And like we said, this has almost never happened before. It's not like he was going to get hired by another team tomorrow and they had to make this move right this minute. They could have, named an interim coach for a little while, maybe not wait till the offseason, but at least long enough for this to kind of the dust to settle. Because if you think about it, there's not many jobs that are less appealing head coaching wise in the NBA, maybe than Minnesota. I think you look at the roster and a lot of guys would say, okay, there's a lot of talent here, but has this organization ever been run well? I mean, the best teammate arguably that Kevin Garnett ever had was maybe Wally Zerbiak. They never put much around him.
They had that issue with Marbury.
The Sam Cassell Sprewell year when they went to the conference finals.
Yeah. But they pretty much squandered one of the best, 25, 50 or so, players, one of the greatest power forwards ever, just by not putting anything around him. They've not really been able to build it all around Karl Anthony Towns, despite his numbers. They've got some exciting young players, and they haven't really developed anyone all that well. So, I'm sure they felt like, hey, if we have a chance to get the guy we want, we have to get him now, because if another job comes available and he's probably going to be more likely to take that than ours. But that's not going to happen until at least the offseason or the very end of this season in a few months. They didn't need to make this move the same exact day. That's what kind of is dirty about the whole thing. It's like, okay, yeah, it's one thing to have an idea of what you're going to do if you decide to go in another direction, but it's like, man, we couldn't wait to get rid of this guy so we could bring this other guy in. And I could see where it would be seen as disrespectful to their associate head coach, which is why I would say, give him the interim job for a little while and tell him, hey, we go in a different direction, but for now you're the guy. Let's give you a chance and see what you can do.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you touched on that. You highlighted the associate head coach, which we're going to talk about here in just a quick second. But the coach that was hired was Chris Finch, just to kind of reset the conversation. Mm-hmm. Chris Finch was brought in, was a part of the Toronto Raptors staff. Again, he has had stints previously on other organizations, just never been on the level of an NBA head coach. What's interesting about this is that Gerson Rosas, who is the GM of the Timberwolves, actually has a prior working relationship with Finch dating back to the Houston Rockets. Now, you can slice that either way. You can look at it as, okay, he wants to bring in a guy that he can trust. And I think that's kind of the easy narrative. But the other side is almost what you would call like the good old boy system. Instead of giving everyone a fair shot at one of the few jobs that are available in the NBA, you just pick your best friend, and it almost has like a nepotistic type feel to that, almost similar to the hiring of Ryan Saunders. Just because Flip was the head coach, they bring in Ryan, who may eventually one day become a really good NBA head coach. He's still young in the game, right? But Chris, I'm interested in seeing, you mentioned it was disappointing that Ryan was fired in the manner that he was. He actually lost to their old head coach, Tom Thibodeau, that same night. I'm sure that, Tibbs and the rest of New York Knicks fans were like, this feels nice at that moment, right? But at the same time, you don't want to see an NBA head coach dismissed in such a, unceremonious manner. The last time that we've seen something like this, Chris, was Lionel Hollins when he was a part of the Milwaukee Bucks coaching staff. He was brought into the Memphis Grizzlies, and people kind of cling on to that as justification for why David Vanderpool, who is the associate head coach, typically meaning that this guy is capable of running an NBA team when he has that opportunity gone and missed. But people also forget that Lionel Hollins had previous working relationship with the Memphis Grizzlies and had NBA head coaching experience. Finch has none of this. So, Chris, this is the hot topic about it. NBA players have spoken about this. What are your thoughts and feelings on David Vanderpool, the associate head coach, being overlooked, it feels like?
I mean, you mentioned it before, Rosas, having, previous, he's worked with Finch before. So now that you know that you understand why he did it, and there might be pressure from, his bosses to like, hey, you need to, I think this was a pressure move. Like, hey, I need to do something now or else I'm going to lose my job. I might not have my job, if I wait and get the right guy. So I think that's what he went about, maybe to save his job for another extra year. You hear a lot of good things about David Vanderpool, and like you said, players have gone out and give him high praise and all that. And he's the associate head coach. He's definitely you're pretty much
you're next in line.
Coach. You're next in line if something were to happen, right? Or else you wouldn't be the associate head coach.
That's a big deal. That's completely different from being the assistant, correct?
Yeah, it's not like he's the head of the head scout, or just a regular assistant coach, a developmental coach. Associate head, you're pretty much the co-head coach. You're helping. There's a reason why. Because listen, Ryan Saunders, when he got the job, it was people like, is he ready? Or is he getting the job because his pops? But I think that's why they gave him the associate head coach. But it doesn't make sense. It just, this whole, like I said, this whole situation is just. It's something we've never seen something like this before, in the NBA ranks, and it does. I wonder how David feels about this,
right.
Being overlooked. Like, wow, like it's one thing if maybe another assistant had gotten the job, maybe they felt like the other assistant, but you went to a different organization, so I wonder how he feels. I mean, that's going to cause a lot of awkwardness because now you have a new coach who's going to try to bring in his own new system during the season. At least David could have tweak some things in the system, but it's still familiar. You don't want to get too drastic. It's still the season. I mean, we still got a whole bunch of games left. 40 games left in the season. Now this new coach, Finch, is going to come in. He's going to implement his system. Now this team's already struggled as is. Now they're going to come and have to learn a whole new system with guys coming in and out. And now what? And then you got David who's going to look at him. Who's going to look at him in the corner like, well, what are you doing? Like, and it's just going to. I think it's going to cause an awkwardness. And I wonder how that's going to feel. But this is not how you handle stuff. I just like I said again, it just rubs me the wrong way how everything's being handled. This is just you don't do this. This is not a good business at all.
Yeah, even for a poorly ran organization, you would hope to never see something like this happen.
Even for Knicks standards, this is like whoa.
Yeah, right. Like
I'm a Knicks fan. I've seen everything. I've seen everything. I've never seen this.
Yeah, and I spoke earlier about Larry Fitzdale and what happened with Derek Fisher off the court, and all those things coming just from your team. Like every other team, you could talk about Sacramento, you can talk about the Wizards, you can talk about a number of teams. The Cavaliers. Even when the Cavaliers were good, they had coaching issues, right? So the fact that we've seen coaching issues really isn't surprising, but just the manner that it was executed, conducted, it's poor form, in my opinion. Now, Austin, Rick Carlisle, who is currently the Dallas Mavericks head coach, and he is also the president of the coaching association in the NBA. He and the rest of his colleagues issued a statement. And the reason we bring up Vanderbilt, obviously, for those who don't know, he is an African-American head coach, right? And one of the things that we've seen all last year with, the cancellation in the season, not only due to COVID, but we almost saw, postponement in the bubble due to social injustice issues, right? And the NBA sending these messages saying, Black Lives Matter, we're with you, be the change and all these other great things, right? And they all sound well and good. But then something like this happens where an African-American associate head coach is overlooked for a white player on a white coach on another team. And Chris, you touched on this earlier. Typically, you don't make a coaching change. You're like, we got to fire this guy who looks good. Okay, this guy over here. They've been working on this for months. Not only is this poor form, in my opinion, on the Timberwolves, but the Raptors allowed this to happen. You know what I mean? And you can argue, okay, well, they can't stop a guy from going and getting an opportunity or something like that. But in my opinion, you kind of can because you have to figure
coaches. Like I don't know how basketball works, but in NFL you can. That's all the time. Belichick does it all the time. He blocks coaches from taking interviews for other jobs.
Yeah. And he's the top assistant, so it's not like he already is carrying a lot of duties and responsibilities on that team. And again, Nick Nurse he's already seen Nate Bjorkgren go out and do a really good job with the Pacers, by the way. Some of that may be, Nick Nurse feeling himself, being like, oh, okay, I'm kind of doing my thing. My coaches look good out there. I'm going to start getting my coaching tree out. But Austin, as I touched on just a second ago, the coaching association come out and made this statement. They said it's always bittersweet when one coach is fired and another is hired, but this is not about individual coaches. We would be remiss not to acknowledge the deeper concern and level of disappointment with the Minnesota head coach hiring process. The NBACA, which is the National Basketball Coaching Association, understands and respects each organization's right to hire and fire whomever and whenever it chooses, but it is also our responsibility to point out when an organization fails to conduct a thorough and transparent search of candidates from a wide range of diverse backgrounds. I'm going to skip a little bit, but they go on to say that the Coaching Association has been working closely with the league office and on a wide range of initiatives that will improve future coaching searches. In partnership with the NBA, we look forward to sharing details in the weeks to come. Now, Austin, I'm hearing things like just submit a list of the guys that you interviewed, because even if a guy is not hired from that process, just to see their name on a piece of paper may make other organizations aware, like, oh, okay, we don't really know about this guy. Maybe we should bring him in and pick his brain to see if he might be a good fit for us. I mean, if San Antonio is looking at this guy, maybe we as Memphis maybe he'll fit our system, something along those lines. So Austin, after hearing Rick Carlisle and the Coaching Association's statement, how do you feel about the way that the NBA should and probably will respond to this?
Well, I don't know if they can retroactively do a whole lot about this instance, but
Correct.
going forward, there should be some form of a way they go about hiring. Like the NFL has the Rooney Rule, and obviously it hasn't done a whole lot of good, and they're working on even more ways to kind of improve that. But at least there's a known standard that you have to interview some people. Like they didn't give anybody a chance to get this job. They just handpicked whoever they wanted. There was no chance for anyone else to interview for it. There was no saying, hey, we're going to do our due diligence on who's available and who's out there. We're going to test the waters at all. It was literally, like you said, it was kind of a good old boy kind of feeling, like a boys club. Like I'm going to pick my guy and he's going to be who our head coach is, and that's it, period. And the Raptors do kind of have a little bit to do with this too, because when you're under contract, I'm sure there's ways to keep this kind of thing from happening, at least in season like that. And
absolutely,
without a proper coaching search. So does the NBA need to go to something where they require, like you said, even just a list of guys you interviewed? I think that would be good. Why not? Because it's something else that's been head scratching about these Raptors assistants getting head coaching jobs is, at the beginning of last offseason, wasn't Adrian Griffin one of the names that everybody was talking about for a head coaching position? And yep, he's a Raptors assistant. And I haven't heard his name since at all. He's been overlooked again and again and again. And to be honest, I think it would help GMs get out of their own way to a certain extent. Sometimes you don't even know what you're missing because you're maybe not willing to interview a certain, portion of the coaching population, or you don't even think about it. So maybe kind of requiring a broader search or at least a more in-depth process could possibly end up helping some of these GMs, because just like Chris Finch was the associate head coach in New Orleans last year, and his name never even came up from what I heard in that coaching search. And then they go and hire Stan Van Gundy, who was in the booth, so that to me, if Chris Finch was such a hot, prospect assistant coach, why wasn't he even talked about for that job? And it's odd to me. The whole hiring process in the NBA is it's kind of like hidden behind closed doors, so to speak. You don't ever really hear much about it, like who teams have really interviewed, unless it's imminent that they're about to sign a coach. And the NFL, at least, they're a lot more transparent about who the teams interview. So I do think there'd be some good that would come from something like that for sure, and they need to.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you highlight the stark differences between the NBA and the NFL and their coach hiring process, when by and large the NBA is considered the more progressive,
exactly,
sports sports affiliated group of people out there. I'm sure there's a term that's slipping my head right now, but largely the NBA is looked at as being more progressive over the NFL. And gentlemen, great points that we brought up there. However, we do have other segments that we're going to talk about, and we'll go ahead and transition now to, NBA coaches making bad decisions to potentially bad decisions. How do we feel about this? The All-Star reservists were announced, and a couple of guys obviously get snubbed. We talked about this ad nauseum in our group chat. Plug for the group chat. I do it every episode, but there's going to be guys that are always performing at an all-star level that, unfortunately, just due to the fact that there are only 12 spots, someone is going to be quote unquote snubbed. And before we move on, I just want to remind everybody that you're listening to the Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. We are brought to you by Off the Ball Network. Go to offtheballnetwork.com for all of your sports needs. But for the Western Conference, gentlemen, Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, and Zion Williamson were announced as the reservists, which are selected again by the NBA head coaches. Also in the Eastern Conference, Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle. Shout out to Julius Randle. Our, Off the Ball Network president is a big Knicks fan. I'm sure he's happy to see his guy here. And just to finish it out, we have Ben Simmons, Jayson Tatum, and Nicola Vuchevich. All right, so first off, Chris, congratulations. Your guy finally got a nod for the All-Star game. Forget last season when everyone hated his guts. This year he's everyone's
we don't bring that up.
He's everyone's favorite Nick this year. Congratulations on that. But by and large, what did you think about the way that the coaches selected these players? And were you surprised? Is there anybody you felt should be deserving?
What's crazy? They all deserve it. And then that's the one thing is like these guys all deserve it, and even the guys who got snubbed, they deserve it. So I don't like this. Like a lot of people said, well, this guy doesn't deserve it. I don't like saying that because how can you say Nicola Vuchevich doesn't deserve to be an all-star, or Ben Simmons, or Julius Randle, or any of these guys? Like to say they don't deserve it is just it's ludicrous. Now, whether guys should have been picked over, that's different, right? That's a different thing, and you can to me, I thought Sabonis was a lock.
Me too.
I thought he was a lock. Like I was like, all right, Sabonis is an all-star. Like he like that was a no-brainer. And I thought it was going to be between him and Vuchevich. And I was like, you got to give. I know you shouldn't just go based off wins and loss records, but if it's a tiebreaker, the tiebreaker should be, wins and losses and that. And Sabonis has been an absolute monster. Like he just does so many things that just. Even the little things that aren't even in the stat sheet, he does, as far as screening. I mean,
yes.
I mean, the few games ago, I forgot who they're playing, but the screen he set for Malcolm Brogdon to hit the game-winning three. I mean, people aren't going to talk about the screen. They're going to talk about Brogdon and the shot. But, Sabonis' screen, I think Minnesota. They played Minnesota.
Yeah.
His screen was the reason why, they won the game because he set such a beautiful screen. So that's probably the only thing, as far as – snubs, but they all deserve it. It's so hard, especially when you got 12 guys, and someone deserving is going to get snubbed. So they all deserved it. Especially the Vuchevich is having a great season. His team's not playing great, but that's also because they got a laundry list of injuries on that team.
Yes.
We can go all day talking about the injuries on our team, and he's not the reason why they're struggling. He's doing his thing. He's averaging 25 and 12. He's not the reason why they're struggling. It's the injuries and all that. But he deserved to be an all-star. But someone's going to get snubbed when you got 12 guys on each side. So, but Sabonis not making the team is kind of surprising because I felt like he definitely should have been one of the 12. But that's really the only thing. But everyone here is deserves to be an all-star, and I'm not going to go crazy about the last Sabonis or Vuchevich. But I'm a little surprised Sabonis didn't make it. But I'm not going to go crazy about that because all these guys, they all deserve. It's not like we saw a guy who averaged 12 points a game out of nowhere. Then we can be like, whoa, what's going on here? But
Ben Simmons would probably be your closest to that 12 point.
But and people will say that, right? And he's only averaging 13, 14 a game. It takes 10 shots a game. But then you're like, if you watch the game,
they actually play basketball.
The best defender in the league.
He does a lot of everything, and
he does so many things other than just scoring, right? So people just look at the stats, like his points per game, and they're like, oh, he shouldn't be an all-star.
Come on now.
Antoine Walker said that, and I'm like, Antoine Walker, come on, you're better than that. Like, he doesn't deserve to be an all-star because he only averages 14 a game, 13 a game. That's ridiculous. He's the best defender in the league. He could guard 1 through 5.
Yeah, I would say best perimeter defender.
Perimeter defender, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy Gobert right now is giving him his stiffest competition as far as defensive player of the year thus far. That's part of the season.
For me. 1-2,
absolutely. Then the rest, it's a step backwards. But all right, Austin. First off, again, I've said this a number of times on our show. I apologize that Indiana had the All-Star game ripped from you guys this season. I know you guys got March Madness, so you're not completely broke.
Great article, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Great article, by the way.
It's when you write something like that, it's easy to see from the responses how many people read the headline and how many people actually read the article, because so many people took it completely the wrong way until they actually read it.
And you had to put it, it's satire, guys.
Right.
But that's the problem in today's world is people just read the headlines and
people don't do that. You're just like saying people only look at stats and judge basketball according to numbers.
That always frustrates me. People just read the headline and like, well, no, if you read the article, it's just that's it. It's just the headline. You got to read. Come on,
right.
Read.
Well,
and Austin, again, just real quick, I know that you not only got the All-Star game ripped from you and was given to my state, in the city of Atlanta, it was given to me. So we win in that aspect. One of us gets an All-Star game in our state, but also the fact that neither one of your Pacers, who I thought both of them were, again, Chris, you said it eloquently, they deserve it. Not as if any of the guys listed ahead of them did not, because there's a whole bunch of guys that should have been on this team, right? based on the production of their season. But you get the All-Star game ripped from you. You don't get any representation in the All-Star game that leads you, that inspires you to go and write a great piece on offtheballnetwork.com, which I believe is titled Salt in Our Wounds.
It is.
I know that hurt, man. I know that hurt, and I'm sorry.
It did. But, honestly, posting it did help me see kind of a new perspective. And I've always really felt this way, to be completely honest. If we're not going to be able to have fans at this All-Star game anyway, why would it be a big deal to have it somewhere else? We get it in 3 years. By then, also, I didn't even realize this. They're doing all kinds of renovations and work on Bankers Life Fieldhouse, so that'll all be done by then. So we'll be able to, You
don't want the All-Star game this year, like the COVID All-Star game. That's what you remember. You don't want the COVID All-Star game.
Exactly. So, the only thing that really is super bothersome to me is the fact that a guy like Sabonis doesn't make it. And a guy, I don't want to say, I agree with you guys. None of these guys are not deserving to make it. So it's hard for me to say he should have been on this team over this guy. But if you did have to pick somebody to take off for him, it probably would, to me, be Ben Simmons. Just for this, I think he is deserving. It's just a lot of people, I think, view the All-Star game as pure entertainment. And for the simple fact that defense doesn't really always come into play a whole lot in these games, that I can see where you could make the case that it'd be more fun to have offensive minded guys over an all around star like Ben Simmons. But that's not to say he's not deserving. This is where I go with this. I think they need to expand the rosters at least by one, if not to 15. And Steven, I know you've been saying this like crazy.
I like 15.
But, every team has 15 players, and the league is just so deep now. I actually saw this idea floated that I don't know if I would agree completely, but it's an interesting thought. In baseball, they have at least one representative from every team.
That's too much.
I think that's a little too much.
I hate that baseball does that, actually.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in baseball that the team doesn't deserve to have an all-star, and they just like
losing intentionally.
They pick the guy with the 4 ERA who happens to be the best pitcher, and it's like he's not an all-star, but you have to pick one. I never liked that with baseball.
That's true. And then, like I said, I don't.
And the NBA doesn't want to model after the MLB,
right?
Yeah, you don't want to do a lot of that.
Exactly. You're not taking a whole lot of cues from Major League Baseball right now. That is true, but it would be nice to see a few more guys be able to get rewarded for their great play. My biggest snub, honestly, regardless of the Pacers and how I feel personally about that, is Christian Wood. I saw a tweet that his agent put out, and he's in the top 15 in like 7 or 8 categories in the Western Conference, like 8th in field goal percentage. He's 14th in 3-point percentage. He's in the top 10 or 12 in scoring. Block shots, he's like 4th. I think he absolutely deserved to be an all-star.
Where does he rank in terms of games played?
That I don't actually know.
He's only played 17 games, bro.
Has he really? I think that's the thing. Okay, so he's only played.
I didn't realize he'd missed that
limited amount of games because he has the ankle injury, right?
Mm-hmm. There you go. I learned something new every time I talk to you guys.
Or else he should have been.
Hands down.
He was on his way to being an all-star. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And second year in a row that Devin Booker is a injury alternate to me, which is a little
coaches
bit of an issue. How did he not make it over his teammate Chris Paul? I know Chris Paul's terrific, but I think of the two, I would take Booker over him for sure. And so that's why I say just open up the roster 2 or 3 more spots. Let some more of these guys be on the team. It's an exhibition anyway. It does mean a lot to these guys to get that designation. But, like Anthony Davis, obviously, when he got named a reserve, it was pretty obvious he wasn't going to play. Even if he does get healthy before the All-Star break, he's not going to play in the game if he's dealing with any kind of injuries. So, talk to him in private and say, you would have been an all-star if it weren't for this, but we're going to name this other guy because we need able-bodied players.
They do like that they are an all-star. So, that.
Well, there's contractual incentives.
There's money, it is always. I know, but there's Julius Randle just got a bunch of money, extra money.
100% Austin, I'm with
you. Even though he's not going to play, you still want to be called an all-star too.
For sure. I get that. That's why I think they need to expand the rosters a little bit because, I said this the other day too. Every year you hear about one guy who he steps on the court for a couple minutes just to say he got in the game because his team doesn't really want him to play because they just got done playing 3 games in 5 days or whatever. Mm-hmm. They have a tough stretch right off the All-Star break. And I think this would have been a year to take advantage of that even more so because for one, so many players voiced that they didn't even want to do an all-star game. They weren't originally going to have one. And it was already with the shortened off season and everything. Everybody's worried about, load management, this and that. Why not make this the year to have 15 guys on each roster? So again, I'm not against anybody that got picked for either team. I don't think you can make a case that any of them are undeserving, but there were definitely 2 or 3 guys on each side that they could have added. And no, I don't think anybody would have had any issue with it.
Right. And that was my point. And I actually just wrote a piece on the offtheballnetwork.com where you can go and get all your sports needs, that expanding the teams to 15, like you just said, Austin, no one would be upset if Trae Young was an all-star this year. It's not like they would be settling for, great value brand food. You know what I mean?
And then too, I know we don't really agree with it, but they make the argument, you hear it all the time, that, if you're the best player on your team and you're leading your team to wins, and another player that's equal in statistics isn't leading his team to wins, they go with the team that has a better record almost all the time. So in that instance, why is there no Pacers anywhere to be found? Warren's been out almost the whole year. They trade Oladipo for a guy who ends up with cancer and can't play. So, and they're still in 4th place in the East. They're still ahead of several of these teams
with a brand new head coach.
Right. Exactly. So
yeah, 100%.
And they let Boston get 2 All-Stars, and Boston's not even, they're the 9th seed right now.
Yeah, and neither one of them were voted in by the fans. They were both selected by NBA coaches. Now, and it was weird how they kind of was like, yeah, wins matter, except for this guy, Zion Williamson. It doesn't matter that you're on the 13th best team in the NBA. You got to make it because you're the poster boy of the future of the NBA. You know what I mean? Like Vuchevich. The Magic are lower than the Pacers. The way that Sabonis is playing is probably, if not better, just as good as Vuchevich. Just
more impactful.
Playing 40 minutes a night too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So we could keep talking about the way that we dislike, kind of pick it apart. But overall, I think if you can even make it situationally based. Like, not every year does it need to be 15. Like what they did in 2019 when they gave us, the old man spots on the roster where they let Dirk and Dwayne go. Right. That didn't happen every year. Just make it a yearly case by case thing. Put it to a vote just like you do with the players. How many roster spots do you want? Everyone vote. Okay, this is what we're doing this year.
I say they start a mid-season tournament where they pick these 2 all-star teams, and then they let somehow decide a team of all the snubs, like the all snub, and let them all play like a round-robin tournament and see who wins.
Well, I would be the coach because I just wrote an article on Off the Ball Network on the all snub, all NBA, all snub.
There you go. So, perfect.
There you go. NBA, if you're looking for a guy, I know him, and I'm right here. All right, so guys, we're going to move on to the next segment here on the show. Chris, I believe this is your first time since we've implemented this on the show that you've been that you're going to be a participant in this, and this is Pass or Shoot. And I believe that you actually came up with the name and gave it to us. We had an idea for the show. We're looking for like a yes or no style answer, and I believe you came up with Pass or Shoot. That's why you're the president, and that's why you're on the show today. So we're going to have you on. We're going to have 3 questions for this segment. And then, if you agree with it, you're going to shoot it. If you don't agree with it, you're going to pass it. So, Chris, the first one, the Mavericks tried or are trying to trade Kristaps Porzingis, pass or shoot?
Oh, they shoot it. They're definitely trying to do this. I believe this 100%. It was a good deal, right? We traded them, and the deal was great for them. They thought they were going to get their 1-2 punch. And it just, what happened in New York with the injuries is happening in Dallas, and it's just it's even greater now because you got Luka now, and Luka needs his Robin, and Porzingis just hasn't been healthy, and he's just this, and now Mark Cuban's like, wow, this is not going to work. This isn't going to work, and it's not just that Porzingis is missing games; his defense.
Yes,
I mean, I saw someone talk about this and just give me all the numbers. I'm like, wow. And then you just watch the film and you're like, yeah, he's not moving the way, he's not being the rim protector he was in New York or early in Dallas. And that's concerning. And that's just, yeah, I think that definitely was, I believe that 100% that they were trying to or tried to get rid of him. And I'm sure that's Mark Cuban's still on the phone. He's probably going on Shark Tank trying to get a deal right now, trying to get him out there so he could get, to get out of that contract, because they gave him the max too. It's,
they have to.
They gave a lot for him. Yeah, they gave a lot for him. And, man, it's, now Mark's looking at Mac and, hey, maybe that wasn't a good deal, and it was a risk because he was coming off the ACL. So it was a risk when they did it. And now you're seeing it kind of maybe backfire on him because he's not the same player. He's just not the same player.
7'3" big man. This was supposed to be the reincarnation of Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki. And Mark Cuban said that he learned his lesson. We're not going to let this guy run away. They locked him up. They got Steve Nash 2.0 and Luka Doncic alongside him. And the second coming of Dirk just has not been there. So, Austin, I know that we've talked about this offline just like we have with Chris. Pass or shoot, the Mavericks have tried or are trying to trade Kristaps Porzingis.
Well, I'm shooting with this one for sure, too, just like Chris said. I don't think those reports just come out of nowhere. Like a SNY reporter doesn't just decide to post a fake story that he heard.
Yeah, from New York reporting on a Dallas situation, right?
I could see, maybe a overzealous, beat reporter in Dallas saying, hey, maybe they need to do this. Let's float this idea out there. But this guy whoever reported it had no.
Ian Begley, shout out to Beggs.
Yeah, exactly. He had no incentive.
Friend of the network.
Yep, there you go. He had no incentive to make anything up there. And Mark Cuban's not going to come out and say, our number 2 player who's pretty close with our star, who we paid all this money to, who we still have under contract and need to play for us. He's not going to go out there and say, oh, yeah, we tried to trade him and nobody really wanted to give us what we were looking for him.
Yeah, we hate him. He stinks. What can you guys give us?
Don't you hate when people like, oh, well, look at Mark Cuban. What can he say? What is he supposed to? He's say, oh, yeah, we're trying to trade him and he's not that good and we messed up. And you think he's going to devalue his
trade? I don't want to hear somebody take him, please. So Cuban doesn't strike me as a very patient guy in the first place when it comes to failure or success. He's seen year in and year out now that it's not as easy to get free agents to come there as people may think it should be.
Which is surprising. It really is surprising because he's built a nice culture there. Right, everyone talks about going to Dallas. They love the environment, what he does for the players, and I don't know. It's weird that no one wants to go there.
Well, Miami is the only place that's allowed to have any sort of culture. No other team can have that. All right. Well, and as for me, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to shoot this as well. I believe that they are trying. And the report that I saw, Chris, was that it was Golden State. Now, my question was okay, like, who do you try to get from Golden State with that $30 million? Obviously, you're not getting Steph Curry for Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah,
I don't think that they're ever going to trade Draymond Green. I think that his peak value has already gone away. So you're not going to trade and get Draymond Green to pair him with that. So that really only leaves, Andrew Wiggins or Kelly Oubre Jr.
Or they're trying to go for Wiseman. Or they were trying to shoot for the moon and try to get Wiseman in there, which I don't know why, Warriors would even entertain that with Wiseman in there.
But that's the thing with Wiseman's contract, you still have to salary match it. You still got
to match it with someone else.
And the only salaries that the Warriors have are super top heavy. After that Oubre Wiggins area and Klay Thompson, it drops off a lot.
Yeah, so I don't get why to even entertain that. Because do you want Wiggins in return? Like, why would you?
Oubre Jr. Like who?
Oubre? Like, is that you're gonna pair Oubre and Doncic? That wouldn't make your team better at all. I'd rather just keep KP and just hope that he gets healthy for stretches. But getting, I didn't understand that unless they shot their shot and said, hey, Wiseman.
Yeah. Can you give us a bunch of bad contracts with this?
Yeah, and I'm sure the Warriors we're good. That doesn't make sense.
And the newest report that I'm seeing are the Wizards, which would be pretty incredible because you could. Maybe I don't think that they have enough to get Bill out of there, but man, could you imagine Bill and Doncic together? That would be illegal.
Oh wow, that would be. I didn't hear. I heard Westbrook for KP.
Right, I'm saying that you would probably shoot for a Bill. Westbrook is obviously the more likely of the two.
That would be more, and that would be. I don't know how that would work, but if I'm Dallas, I'd try to you shoot your shot, try to get Beal if possible. They don't have the picks, so they don't have a first round pick to 2027, I believe, because the Knicks have this year. They have 2023, and that's protected until 2025. So they don't have one to 2027. So Dallas is. It's crazy.
It's a tricky situation.
Dallas going into this year, I was one of the few people that said I'm not going to buy into they're going to be a top 3 seed and take over and win a championship. I was like, there's a possibility, especially with KP's injury history.
You're right, man. I thought they were going to be in that second or third.
Yeah, I'm like, they could miss the playoffs in the West. Like, the West is deep. Like, if KP's not healthy, and then Luka's got to carry the load, this could make it miss the playoffs. And right now, they're not in they're in that last, the 9th seed right now. So, it's tough. It's tough right now, in Dallas right now.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we're going to close out this segment with one more. We're going to say DeMarcus Cousins signs with the Lakers or the Nets. Now, it's not one. It's pass or shoot that he signs with either one of those two teams. So, Chris, DeMarcus Cousins, who we just found out got released today, he signs with either the Lakers or the Nets. Are you passing or shooting?
Oh man, this is tough. I'm going to shoot. I think he signs with either or. Yeah. The Lakers could definitely need bodies at this point because obviously losing AD is tough, and then they got their roster. If you look at their roster after AD and LeBron, it's like, okay, it's a truck. And obviously, I don't know how much DeMarcus Cousins even has left. He doesn't seem like he has much left, so I don't even know what he could even bring to the Lakers right now. But they do need some size, because they lost a lot of size in off season, but losing McGee and Dwight Howard, so they could maybe use him just to be a body, but he doesn't do much defense, if any. I mean, he wasn't a good defender in his prime. Now he's even worse, and that could be a disaster for them. The Nets could just use him, like I said. They just need body at this point. Those to me the only two options. Other than else, I don't see anywhere else. Unfortunately, this might be closing in on the end of his career. But I would say he would probably sign because he probably wants to win a chip too, and those are two best opportunities to win one. So I would say I would shoot for the Lakers when that's him signing.
All right. Well, Austin, I'm just due to time constraints, we're going to restrict you just to pass or shoot, and then we'll move on to our closing segment if that's okay.
I'm good with that. I'm passing it. I don't think just for all the reasons that Chris just said, I don't think either team is going to be super interested in going after him, considering some of the other names that we've heard possibly going to be on the buyout market soon. So I'm passing. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm shooting. I think that he goes, I'm going to say probably Brooklyn, but the Lakers, I mean, the appeal to return there. And, he left on good terms when he left that team last season. But all right, guys.
He could have won a championship. Technically, he gets a ring.
Yeah,
technically, he's a champion.
Yeah.
Question
mark? I guess.
Question mark?
Kind of like Avery Bradley.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right, guys. Well, we're going to close out the pass or shoot segment and effectively close out the show. But this has been the Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. The Breaking the Game show is brought to you by the offtheballnetwork.com, where you can go get all of your sports needs. But Chris, Prez, honor and a privilege to have you on today, man. Just go ahead and let the people know where they can find you at, man, and anything that you have going on in the works.
Yes, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. This is always fun chopping up with you guys. You guys you're killing it as usual. But yeah, you can find me Off the Ball Pod, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. Just had a busy week.
Yes, you did.
I had a few shows this week. I started off the week with at Scott Pollard, former champion.
I had no idea that he lived Carmel.
Yeah, he lives
crazy.
I think you guys are neighbors.
Right? That's not far from me at all.
Yeah. So I had him on the show Monday. I had Rashad Phillips on the show yesterday.
That was a fantastic show.
That was, thank you. That podcast coming out tomorrow. We got a new show with Patrick Graham from Say It Out Loud Sports. We got a new betting show, Nothing But Bets, on Dash Radio. So yeah, I got a lot of projects coming up. But yeah, just busy week. But thank you for having me. Really appreciate that. And we got good things coming on Off the Network too. So tune in, guys.
Absolutely. And again, great job with all the guests that you lined up this week. My favorite part of the Rashad Phillips show was when you were like, so I was talking to Scott Pollard the other day, like like
no big deal.
Right? Like, that was pretty cool. He kind of sprinkled that in there. I was listening. I heard.
I remember that. I did say that. I did. I said as if me and Scott are like best friends.
You just kick it, like you and Scott are neighbors, not Austin.
Well, I will say, just from watching your show with him, Scott Pollard does seem like a pretty nice guy.
Absolutely.
He
very humble.
He even says like, I might talk a lot.
Guy.
So if you could stop me, I was like, no, man, you
go ahead.
Go ahead and say what you want to say. Yeah,
people are here to listen to you.
Exactly.
Right?
They're not here to listen. They're here to listen to you. So talk, say whatever you want. And he was wide open. He was talking about stuff that he probably hasn't talked about, and so he was. So
I remember
cool
him opening up like that. Yeah,
he opened up, and that's what I try to do with my show. I try to just make it a nice conversation.
Mark, a great interviewer.
I try to just make it nice, cool, casual. I'm not going to get into so in Game 6 of the 2002. Why did you scream there? Like, no.
What was it like getting embarrassed by Shaq and the Lakers?
Yeah. What was in? And then
he did. About that.
He talked about that. Like, hey, Shaq broke him back. Like,
but Chris didn't frame it that way. He did a good job. He held his own as an interviewer. That was a fantastic show.
That was fun, man. It's so much fun to do interviews like that, and it was a lot of fun, man. But like I said, it's been a great week, and like I said, more good stuff coming down the line. So excited for everything.
Yeah. And Austin, just the other day we were, talking to Ronnie Brewer, no big deal. But
our old buddy.
And now we're talking to Chris LeBron. So I mean, the guests are only
Ronnie Brewer, friend of the network.
Friend of the network. Yeah. He was phenomenal. We got to have Ronnie back on again. But Austin, let the people know where they can find you, and again, make a plug for that fantastic article that you just
for sure. Well, you can find my work at the wonderful offtheballnetwork.com that these guys do such a great job with, and are kind enough to let me be a part of. On Twitter, I'm Austin Carr 10. If you want to follow me there, you can find me on Facebook, social media. You can follow the show. Obviously, I'm here every week, at least once or twice a week with Steven. And you guys did speak so kindly about my article. It is called Salt in Our Wounds. It is kind of a lighthearted take on my feelings around the All-Star game and what happened with it getting taken away from Indianapolis. But please read it with a grain of salt. Understand that it's obviously not meant to be completely serious. But I did have a lot of fun writing it. So thank you for what you guys said. And then, Chris, I just want to say, anytime you want to have me on that betting show, I'd love to come on. So I'm all about that.
No pressure. He put you on the spot here on the show.
That's already. We're going to be working on that.
There you go.
Good, man. I'm
definitely going to be
dying
doing
to do that for sure. My wife doesn't let me bet nearly as much as I'd like, so at least getting to talk about it's a good close second. So.
Oh yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk more. We'll definitely have you.
But you guys, everybody that listens, where to find me, and just keep listening to the show.
Absolutely, and Austin, again, just. One, love having you as a co-host on the show. The show is not on the Nothing But Net channel without you, like hands down.
I appreciate that.
You're fantastic, and again, you're also as talented as you are as a co-host here on the show. You might be a better, writer, publicist, along those lines. So definitely super talented. But as for myself, you can follow me on Twitter at StephenBTG. That BTG stands for the Breaking the Game show, which you're listening to here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, brought to you by Off the Ball Network. You can also follow me on Instagram at Stephen W. Gillespie. You can follow the show itself on either platform at BTG NBA Pod. You can follow the show on Facebook at Breaking the Game. So do your facebook.com/Breaking the Game. Please, can't stress it enough. Please go check out offtheballnetwork.com for all of your sports needs. If you want to follow the show on not just Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, maybe you miss it on the show, go download the app. We're available anywhere that you get your podcast from. It's just simple. Just go type in Breaking the Game. You'll see a black logo with a mic and headphones and a basketball, obviously indicating that we are, in fact, a basketball podcast. But gentlemen, fantastic show. Chris, again, much love, man. Can't stress enough how fun it is anytime that we link up to talk basketball. Got to get you back on again in a much sooner fashion than what we brought you on today.
Definitely.
I appreciate you guys. You guys are the best. Thank you guys for having me on.
Steven's definitely the best host out here doing it for sure. I think you do a fantastic job of running our show every week. I just wanted to throw that out there for you, man. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you very
much. I was waiting for someone to compliment me as much as I was complimenting anybody else. No one said anything, but Austin, you came in and made me feel better. I appreciate it, man. So appreciate it. But all right. And as for you, the listener, the viewer, we appreciate and love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in live, for tuning in on Nothing But Net, for tuning in via the podcast. We have been the Breaking the Game show. We will catch you guys every Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on the Nothing But Net channel on the Dash Radio app. We'll talk to you guys next time. Much love, everybody.
Have a good one.
Peace and love.